Okay, so here's the Earth. I'm sorry, this is a wine bottle, not the Earth. That was a reference to a very old internet video, which hopefully some people got. Round, this wine bottle is. There goes the reference. All right, that's dumb. So what we're going to do now is light this bad boy. And we're going to do that with lights. You can tell I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. What I like to do is when I press 1 to go into the front view, I want that to be the front. So right now I should be looking at my backdrop. So I'm going to create that backdrop. Going up a little bit, Shift A, Mesh, Plane, which if you had your cursor centered, it should pop up right there, which is great. Mine did. Tab into edit mode. Scale this up a little bit. And then I'm just going to select this edge and then E and Z to bring it up a little bit. And then I will press Control B to bevel this. And then scrolling up, create a very simple little seamless backdrop. Fun history fact, creating a seamless backdrop in Blender was my first ever YouTube tutorial. Thank you to anyone who's been here that long. I'm going to right click and shade that smooth and double check that when I press 1, I will be looking at that backdrop, and I am. So that is great. So now what I want to do is set my viewport up a little bit better so that I can start working on multiple things at once. So I want to be able to have my scene view here, but I also want another view where I will be able to work on materials and also see what the camera is seeing. So what I'll do is, first of all, click up here in the top right, and this has always been kind of a weird thing in Blender. Apparently it's easier now, but here's my mouse, follow it up to here. Just kind of hover in this area and then drag to the left. We'll split out a view. And almost all the time I like to have my rendered view down here, but since this is going to be more vertical, I'm going to step outside my comfort zone, and this will be the rendered area. And this will be the modeling area. I will eventually drag down a shader editor into this sort of area, but I don't think I need to do that yet. So like I said, rendered view. We're going to switch this to a rendered view. Now by default, we are rendering in Eevee. I'm going to press N to hide this sidebar, and I will turn off my overlays with that button right there. So now I just have an unobstructed view of what my bottle looks like rendered. Now I am going to try to do maybe a small section towards the end of this on what to do in Eevee, but for the purposes of this and what I really think looks significantly better is to render this in cycles. However, especially if you're going to do an animation, that may take quite a bit longer, and depending on the computer you're working on, could slow you down. So feel free to follow along in Eevee, but at least for the next few steps, we're going to be doing this in cycles. So I want this view over here on my left to be my camera view, but I deleted my camera earlier. What a mistake that was. I'm going to press Shift A and add a camera back in, which is going to add it right there at the where my cursor is. So now what I'm going to do is just bring it back, G, Y, and then just kind of G, Z. And then what I usually like to do to just get it looking straight ahead is just holding Control, and then I'll just mouse over these fields, and it'll just snap it to increments. So the Z should be 0, X to be straight ahead would be 90, and then similarly on the X it should be 0. Y, let's go ahead and snap that to a nice even number, and Z we can do the same thing. It's hard to tell exactly what that's seeing though, because over here I want to actually look through that camera. So I'm going to press 0 on my number pad. And by the way, I probably haven't mentioned it, but when you're pressing hotkeys and things in Blender, it matters quite a bit where your mouse is. You can see if my mouse is over here and I press 0, it'll take that view into my camera view. If my mouse is over here, it'll take that view into my camera view. So that's one small thing that could be confusing if you're starting out, as maybe your mouse is over somewhere weird and you press the hotkey and it's not working. It could be something like that. But let's now set up our since this is mostly a vertical object, and let's go ahead maybe and just add in so we can actually see what's going on here. Let's just add in our first light. Let's do that as an area light, and just bring it up there. So now it's not just like this dark thing over there that you can't even see what's going on. Let's make our aspect ratio the opposite of this. So let's do 1080 by 1920. And yes, marvelous. Now this would be, let's bring this in, just kind of get it in the right position. Maybe bring it down a little bit. This is a critical moment. This is where you decide, what mood am I trying to set? Of course, you can change these things later as much as you want. So it's not that critical. Go ahead, wipe the sweat off your brow. We're going to make it through this part of the tutorial just fine. We want to decide some things like maybe the focal length. So is this an epic bottle of wine? The biggest, the best you've ever seen? Do we want a very small focal length so that our bottle stands tall and proud? Or is this maybe more like a wine ad would be, where you use something more longer, like a 61, that I'm trying to get to 60, because that would make me feel better. Oh, there we go, 60. Is that what we're going for? Do we want to be down on the floor level, a peasant looking up at this fine blend? Do we want to be high in the sky, a seasoned wine snob looking down at this fine blend? The choice is yours. I think for me, I'm going to stop talking in that voice, and I just want to be kind of dead on, just very understated. I mean, I'm kind of making a joke out of it, but seriously, like when you're, look at reference images is one good place to start, but you can tell a lot about a product, and just, you know, you can really paint the picture with things like the focal length, things like where the camera is in relation to the object. Maybe we want to look down ever so slightly at this, so that's something like that. And then let's just bring it in a little bit just to frame it quite nicely. So I think that looks quite nice. We'll leave it at that for the framing, and I have my viewport set up how I like. We can go ahead and add in a few lights. Now, it's not a horrible idea. I was gonna say it's a good idea, but it's not that huge of a deal. To do your lighting with not too much material action going on, it'll really help you to see the reflections, the shadows, and things like that. That being said, I will go ahead and set up a very simple material for the glass by clicking that, and then here, and then I did the new button right there, which I think it already created one, so it's right there. I'm going to name that bottle, as one would. And now I won't even color it yet, but what I am going to do is turn the roughness down so that it's nice and shiny, and I will make it a little bit of a darker color just so that we can see what we're doing a little better. We can see the reflections of the lights that we're about to add. So this one right over top is not doing a whole lot, but I do think I like it. I think I'll leave it there. And oh my God, what is that bug? Why does it always happen to me? Sometimes when I scale the lights with the button, it gives me bad errors. Always a good idea to save your file if you haven't already. I have saved when the camera was off. This is the only smoke and mirrors, so I saved the file. I didn't change anything else. So I think let's maybe just move this over. Oops, GX. Move that over there. And again, this is a good point to look at some reference images, see what you can find, and just kind of try to mimic those. So a lot of the ones I see have this really nice sharp line going down one of the sides. So I'm going to actually use a rectangle so I can have a little bit more control over the size there, and hope that that error doesn't come back. I'm going to save so that it doesn't come back, or if it does, I'll fix it. And yeah, I'm kind of looking over here. I mean, this is the money is over on this side. This is just kind of moving things around, but I'm really looking more over here while I'm working on this. And maybe I don't want this huge gap right there. So maybe we can move this back a little bit. You have to move it pretty far before it comes up on the edge. I don't want it all the way on the edge, but I want it to wrap maybe a little bit more. So here I am going back to basically a square. And I just want to get a very nice gradient. Something like, maybe like that looks good. And that'll be a decent placement for my first light. You might consider turning that up or down. I also think I'm going to end up having this background maybe be black, or maybe just for now I'll make it black. So let's just do a new material. We'll call that the floor, and we'll make it black. And it's a little bit shiny now, so we can turn the roughness all the way up, but we may mess with those materials a little bit more later. Right now we're really just focused on the lighting. So I've got that really nice highlight there. That might be all you want. You might not want any more than that. But for me, I do want to add a little bit more interest and get some light going on over here. You can see we do have some things happening, and that's just because of our world strength. So right now our world is this gray color, which, believe it or not, is adding light to the scene. And in other tutorials, I've turned the strength all the way down to 0 so that we're only receiving light from lights that we add, and we have complete control. But for this one, I actually think it looks decent to leave a little bit of world color on. You could use an HDRI if you really want some intense reflections. But in my experimentation, I found that just using this white looks fine. And you could leave it gray, or for some reason I want it to be white, and then I want to turn the strength down to like 0.1 or something, just so that nothing is going to be completely unlit. We don't have any black, and we're already getting a little bit of a nice gradient with that. So what I want to do now is another thing that if you've watched one of my tutorials before, you know I like to do, is add a light. We'll add a point light, and then we're going to move that back, and then we're going to move it up. And what this is going to do is going to kind of create very natural. And by the way, if you don't want, my computer is using processing power to render around this as well, and I don't need that, so I can press Control B and just drag over that window, and it will snap that to the camera view. So now I just have that one picture there. It's not quite so obstructed. So what this point lamp does is kind of creates a little bit of a natural vignette. And if I bring the size of it, by the way, this happens to me on a daily basis. I am messing with lamps, and I'm in the world setting, and I turn the strength up, and it's not doing what I freaking want because I need to be in the lamp tab. You gotta be in the lamp tab, Derek. That's what Blender tells me every day. You gotta be in the lamp tab, Derek. I want to adjust the strength of this lamp, bring it up in the lamp tab. Oh dear viewer. But now if I bring the radius up, you can see, and we'll look at it in this view, you can see that that would be like the size of that light. So the smaller it is, it's not really wrapping, it's barely wrapping that edge there. But what I'm going to use this light to do, besides create that nice natural vignette, is to create a little bit of a, what's that called? An edge light? Rim light, I think, something like that. One of them Latin terms I don't know much about. That wasn't Latin term, by the way. That was Latin term. So we're going to turn that to somewhere where we just got a really sexy little, just something like that. Maybe you can bring it down if you want to kind of wrap down that way. We got wrappers all over this file. We got the bottle wrapper. Still hasn't made any music. We got the rim light wrapping our bottle. We'll just call this tutorial a wrap tutorial. That looks pretty good. Does it look good? I think it looks good. Oh, yeah, it looks pretty good. Now, a little bit dark over here on the right side. So I think maybe what I'll do is I might add in another light. Once again, I can't remember exactly what I thought looked best here. So you can add in just another one of those lights. I just did Shift D. But that is just not very exciting. I want it to be a little bit more subtle than that. Which of course you could just turn the strength down. But one thing that I thought ended up looking pretty cool, and in all of my 13 years of using Blender, I never really did much of this until recently, but I'm going to add a plane purely to reflect some light, as if we were like in a room or something. So I'm pressing tab to go into edit mode, and I'm just going to rotate this. Press R twice to do like a free rotation, or it's like called like trackball rotation or something, I think. Trackball, yeah, there it says up there on the top, trackball. Just to rotate that the way I like, and it takes a little experience to know how to command that thing. But yeah, trackball. And so now I'm getting, so I haven't added a light. All I've added is a plane, but that plane is being reflected in the glass there. And that's a really nice way to kind of create the semblance of like a room or something that this is in. Again, just little photography type details. But now what I'll do is maybe E and X, like bring this over. Now, if you did want to come over this way, it's fine. You just need to change some clipping. You could, of course, move your camera in past it, but easiest way is to, in the viewport display, you can show the limits and then turn the clip start up, which means that it will clip anything before that. You can see if I drag it all the way up to the bottle, it'll start to cut through that. So that's very convenient for, especially if you're doing like an interior render or something like that, and you're trying to get like a nice big room shot, but technically you would be outside the room. You can use that for that type of scenario. But for me, I'm just going to use it to poke through my reflector. Now, just for the sake of organization, I will add a material and call that the reflector. In case I did want to do something really subtle, like for example, let's move this up a little bit. So this is kind of weird with the geometry, like the way the reflections work. This would have to come sort of up a little bit. Maybe that like comes down. Just it's okay to play with this. You're not going to see it. I'm just kind of trying to create some little bit of interest wrapping around the bottle there. So something like that. That might look nice. Might also look totally ridiculous. It's up to you. I think it looks good. So that's fine. That's a reflector. Now, if you wanted to introduce a very subtle color, remember that this is, let's shade that smooth so we don't get that. You could introduce a little bit of color this way. Maybe you really want to tell the story. Maybe you're like me, and as soon as you finish recording this tutorial, you're going to go play Cyberpunk 2077 that's been sitting on your Xbox for the past 15 hours unplayed. So, maybe you want a nice little yellow glow or something like that. Or maybe you're not a psycho and you want to just be a normal freaking wine bottle renderer and you just leave it white, which is going to be me today. So that looks good. Bring this up, bring this down, keep playing with the lighting. I'll try not to hold this up any longer, but for real, like this is the type of stuff you want to spend time on. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate this lamp. And, but yeah, for real, like just move things ever so slightly. Keep tweaking it until you get the look you want. So I press Shift D to duplicate that lamp, and then I'm going to press Alt R. And, I might have turned off my screencast keys. I'm going to turn it back on for you. And I'm just moving this light here. And this is just going to be a little light to kind of hit the top. So we will make that a square though. Maybe we make that a disc. Let's make it a disc. I like discs. And then we can make it quite a bit smaller perhaps. We might not need this. It kind of helps give a little bit of, that's kind of creating this shadow a little bit, which I kind of like. I don't know, we'll tweak it. Right now we're just trying to get you set up with the basic render that you can show your boss, hey boss, I made a wine render, and you can just leave it at that. I'm going to save because I'm going to change this to an ellipse. I'm changing my mind again, and I'm going to push that button, which sure enough, crashed Blender. It's like the only thing that has ever crashed Blender. Good thing I saved. Let's open her back up. And let's open her back up. And let's window full screen back. Yes, beautiful. Should we try it again? Should we try it again? No. Our knowledge would tell us not to. Blender, you're not making me look good. You're never buggy, except for now. That's like the one thing, I'm not kidding, that always gets me. It didn't do it earlier. Sometimes it does it. I don't know if this light, if I need it. Always a good idea to turn off, turn on your different lights. See what's doing what. We can turn off area light, point light. Oh, so that's the point light. I'd say we like that. Let's leave it. Here's the other light, side area light. I think I like that. Now the top one. It's giving me, okay. It's giving me some heat. right here. See that? I think I want that. Oh. So if that's it off, that's it on. The choice is yours. Is that doing something good for your render? I'm going to say it is, but I think I want this to be maybe a little bit smaller so that that gets a tad sharper. So let's just kind of pull that in a little bit. Maybe should just left it a disk. Why does it need to be an ellipse, Derek? It's an ellipse. I like it. So that looks good. So that was a good little test. You know, it's not a bad idea to zoom in and kind of see where you're at with things. And then, boom, add that nice fat highlight. That's looking spectacular. You wouldn't even know that all this is a solid black object with no wine inside it. So, shall we move on to some more advanced materials now that we have our beautiful lighting setup? Don't forget to save. Control S is going to be your hotkey there. And yeah, let's set up the materials.